Welcome to the Predictive Playbook. I'm your host, John Ryan, and it's a very special day today. We're going to be talking about the Masters with the best PGA handicapper I have ever known in David Bearman of ESPN, Deputy Editor of Sports Betting Content. Welcome to the show, David. How's it going?
Well, production, I better not miss on any of these picks. I better just take Dustin and Jordan and all the Justin and all the leaders at the top to make sure I don't miss. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for the nice words. We have
The truth is, you've been on this show many times, and there hasn't been one, knock on wood, that you have not profited. So we're going to keep it going.
Hopefully you didn't just mush us, but it's good. It comes with the territory. I appreciate it.
So we have the 85th edition of the tradition like no other, the Masters. The course, from what I can tell on TV, looks like the Masters is supposed to, as compared to last fall when it played very, very soft. Talk is that it's playing very fast. The greens are fast. Everything is fast. It's going to be probably a tournament, unless they get a lot more rain than expected. It's probably going to be single digits for the winner, potentially. I'm thinking too that all the years that this has been played, the front nine, the pair of par fives, may actually go a long way to determining who wins this thing. And that's just from looking at the setup and how they're playing. 4 and 5 have always been the toughest back-to-back holes on the front nine. You get through that, you have one more par five after that. But the course, pretty much, I have never played it. I'll make that caveat right now, but I would love to. Unlike the Players that we both have played, the first hole is benign. At the Masters at Augusta, that first hole can kick you in the rear end, and it can dictate and dominate a round right from the start. It's a very tough opening hole, probably one of the toughest opening holes in all of golf. Unfortunately, I remember a bad thing with Ernie Els with a six putt on the first hole. And he's not the only one to ever have trouble on that hole. But I think a good start is always managed, especially those guys on Sunday.
Yeah, and you always know that everybody's watching. And right off the top, you had mentioned that it's going to be playing different in November. And you obviously take November into an account because people were there and people played it. I don't see minus 20 winning it like Dustin ran away with it last time. It will play harder. It will play faster. It's what we want to see. Could be single digits. Could be just little lower double digits. It definitely isn't going to be 20, 21 under par. But you're right about that first hole. I'm fortunate enough to have been to two of these Masters. I worked it twice in 2010 and 2011. Got to walk the course many, many times. And that first tee shot is definitely imposing. I've stood right there, looked at it, and said, this is the first hole of the Masters. And be like, I have absolutely no idea where I'd want to miss. Now, these guys play this all the time. They play practice rounds. They know the course better than any of us. But just standing on that first tee box or walking down that first fairway. And then, if you go left, you're in the trees. If you go right, you're by the media tent and you have no shot. And if you go back and look, Tiger historically bogeys that hole almost every single time, that first hole out there. And it's a very tough one. And you mentioned the par fives. I think they're gettable at times, which is why I think some of the guys I'm playing this week are really good with par five scoring. That eighth hole, it's almost a must birdie hole as you're approaching the back nine. You have that long par five. Obviously, it's become known as the eagle hole. That and 13 and 15 have been eagle holes over time. Will move the Masters scoreboard around, and with the roars that you usually hear through the galley. If you're standing somewhere around the 10th tee box, 9th green, which is a very popular place to be able to see 10 tee, 9 green, and 1 tee behind you, you can hear the roars up 8 if someone gets a birdie or an eagle on 8. And there's really nothing like that at Augusta. To be able to stand on the 9th tee and hear the roars from 8. I remember back in, I think it was 2010, it was when Tiger made his return from his absence after the sex scandal. That was his first tournament back, and it was a complete media circus, and things calmed down. But then on Sunday, he had that big 30 on the front nine, announced his presence. He didn't go on to win. Phil wound up winning that one. But when he eagled 8, I happened to be standing on the 9th green, and you could see him coming up 8. You see the red shirt.
Oh, that's awesome.
And when he eagled that hole, it was to me. I mean, obviously, I've seen other moments of Tiger. I was at Torrey Pines when he made that big putt to tie Rocco, but I will always remember the roar because at the U.S. Open, I was in the truck, so you heard it, but you couldn't really see it. standing there on 9, and when Tiger hit that putt, I was like, oh, we have a tournament now. I gotta go figure this out. But it's just one of those things where there's nothing like Augusta, and I would tell every golf fan in the world, if you can, get there. Obviously, get there. Take your dad there. Take your grandpa there. Even if it's for a practice round. I know COVID changes things up, but when the world goes back to normal and they're allowing people in all the time, practice rounds, etc., put your name in the lottery, get the tickets, go out there, just walk the grounds. There's honestly nothing like it.
Yeah, I definitely have to do that. I heard that if you become a volunteer, which they have been looking for in past years, apparently, that if you do it, I think 3 years in a row, and you show up and you do a good job, you get to play Monday. And that's what I was told. I don't know if that's officially true, but that's pretty tempting to do 3 years in a row and then get to play it.
Hey, it'd be worth it. I know that every single time I did the Masters, I booked a late plane flight back on Monday, hoping that I would win the media raffle to play it. Didn't win the media raffle either time, but I would hang around town just in case my name got called. And it's definitely a course I want to play, but for where we are right now, I'll take solace in to know that I walked it a couple of times, which is good.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that. Yeah, that's just has to be just like a piece of heaven, really. For us, golf addicts. It's got to be.
It's really weird because the area around it isn't what you would think it would be. Washington Avenue Washington Street is a really, really busy street, commercial street with, chain restaurant after chain restaurant. And then you hang a turn and it's Magnolia Drive, and you're in this little piece of heaven. Go down Magnolia, and then you're out there in our cabin. The truck's out, over by the par 3 course, but then you feel like you're on another planet. You have no idea that you're actually, in Augusta, Georgia, right off a main road. You're in this, just all you hear are the trees and the fans. It's quite beautiful.
And it's pretty hilly too, right? When we've been walking around, yeah.
Yeah, work out your calves before you go there. That was one of the things that surprised me the first time I was there. Was, it's hilly because you see it on TV, but it doesn't do it justice until you're walking it,
right?
And you realize you got dress shoes on because you're working, and you're like, why did I wear dress shoes as I'm trying to walk up these hills? And I learned my lesson. I wore sneakers the next day, so it's you need strong calves for sure.
Well, we have good news, I guess. If you like Jordan Spieth, I thought that was a good win for him, obviously for the sport, and as a result, now we've had the market kind of change, and Spieth's excellence now the last 4 weeks has pushed a lot of guys that I like to higher levels. They're becoming much more attractive. Like a Patrick Cantlay is one of my guys this week. Justin Thomas, you wouldn't think he's flying under the radar, but because of Spieth, Spieth is number 2 now on the 2-win list, and that has pushed Justin Thomas a little bit higher, and that gives you a little bit more value too, especially if you're playing top 10s. So I think that's a good thing for this week. And Spieth, his last major. I wanted to ask you this, David. His last major win, he won back-to-back weeks. So I've heard a lot of people say that, well, you don't take a guy that won the previous week before the Masters.
I tend to not pay much attention to the week before any major type thing because for the most part, over the PGA history, like the week before the Masters has always been a non-great field, whether it was the Shell Houston Open or it was some other event. Not a lot of guys go and play it. They take the week off. Same thing when you're going overseas to the British Open. You either take the week off or you get there early and play the Scottish Open the week before. And then, on the back end with the U.S. and PGA Championship, back when it was later in the year, there's so many other events between the playoff and the WGC that a lot of people take the week off. So the whole you can't win the week before, it's just one more metric to use. I pay zero attention to it because to me, I look at a player, as we've discussed on this show before, course history, course metrics, recent history, how they're playing, how they play this course, etc. And how you weigh them depends on what the course is. It doesn't even enter my mind if a guy, sorry, I almost dropped my computer. It doesn't even enter my mind whether a guy won or lost the week before. It's more like how they played the week before. And in Jordan Spieth, you have the curious case of a guy who had disappeared off the radar for the last 2.5 years and has been playing well and did win last week. Now, would my philosophy on Spieth change this week, whether he won last week or not? No. Like if I like Jordan Spieth, it's all about the odds I'm playing him, not whether he won or lost. I think the win has hurt the odds of anybody that wants him. If you got him at 50, you got him at 60, I think the win makes you feel like you got a bargain, and you did. I would not take him at 9 or 10 to 1. You lost the value. It's gone. I would take him to make a top 10 at even money, because that's Jordan does top 10s at the Masters like it's, his lunch. He does it all the time. Even when he's playing bad, Jordan can get a top 10 at the Masters because he plays this course very, very well. I will use what he did last week to tell me that he's playing well, but I already knew he was playing well before last week. And I also knew he plays the Masters well. So I'm going to be playing Jordan in top 10s, top 20s, and in matchups. But the value of picking him to win is out the door. If you got him at 50, if you got him at 40, congrats to you. It's a curious case of futures, the market. And playing the market, it's an educational thing when it comes to people involved in golf betting. Is if you see a player who is struggling, but coming up in a few weeks is his favorite tournament, and he starts to play better, that's when you should jump on him. And I'm mad at myself for not jumping on him 3 weeks ago, and he was still 25 or 30, because he could very well win this thing and be like, oh man, I could have gotten him. And you can get him at 9, you can get him at 10. It's just not a good value play. I'm not going to stop anybody or tell anybody it's a bad bet to go take one of the hottest players at an event he's won before. Wouldn't be surprised at all if Jordan Spieth puts on another green jacket. I just think if you're going to play a 9 or 10 to 1 shot, I would rather play a Dustin or a Justin than play Spieth, because of the overall body of work as opposed to just the last few weeks.
Yeah, and Justin's is a good name too. In each of his, I think this is his 5th time now. He's done better. He's finished better each successive Masters that he's played in, and he's obviously playing at a very high level coming into this event. I have, this is from my, my machine learning apps, and I don't think you really needed machine learning apps to come up with this important criteria, but it seems like driving distance is a big factor in this event, along with strokes gained total, tee to green. And do you agree with that, or do you think there should be another one added to it?
I look at the Masters a lot. I look at it more of a short game type thing. If you're good at around the greens, good on the greens, good putting, because I think everybody in the field can get it out there. Bryson has shown that he can get it further than everybody else, but it didn't work to his advantage. Distance is good. Accuracy not necessarily as important at Augusta. You use places that you can miss. In fact, a lot of the guys who win this event don't come anywhere near leading the field in accuracy, because you can miss in certain spots. But you got to hit those spots. So I think, iron play is huge in terms of approach. Around the green is very important to me for this course, because of the undulation of the greens, of knowing that if you miss in certain spots, you're screwed. Which is why I like guys like Patrick Reed, who has won here before in 2018. He played well there in November, finishing in the top 10, and he's number 1 on tour in strokes gained putting. That's a metric that can't be discounted. When he gets on the greens, Patrick Reed is the best on tour right now in strokes gained putting, 1.1 shots better than the field. And if he does that this week, John, he's going to walk away with another green jacket, because to have more than one stroke versus the field in putting at Augusta would be astounding, and it would be something that would lead him to win again. I'm not saying driving distance isn't important. Obviously, the machine learning put that out there. Obviously, the further you get out, the shorter your irons are in, and it's important to hit those greens and hit them in the right spot. So distance is important. I just think that Augusta National is one of those places where you can miss off the tee and get away with it. So I would agree that distance is more important than accuracy here. But at the end of the day, you have to hit the greens, and you have to be able to get up and down and save those pars at this golf course.
Yeah, I was surprised with the results that, maybe 20 years ago, putting was the number one thing at the Masters, because I guess that was the evolution of the game. They were figuring out ways to grow the grass better, mow it tighter, and maybe it was even before that. But now it seems like if you can drive the ball far enough, to your point, using wedges, hit it very, very high, have it come in straight down an elevator shaft, then it's a matter of making the birdie putt instead of trying to get consistently up and down, which that can be a grind mentally in this event for sure.
You have guys who are a little bit shorter off the tee do well because of the accuracy of the irons. Like a Zach Johnson isn't long and has won here before. Danny Willett wasn't long when he won it. Spieth obviously is a good driver, but he wasn't long off the tee the year that he won it. You just got to be able to shots around the green. Iron play is huge. Chipping and putting is enormous. So guys that are able to get there, I mean, distance matters. It matters everywhere. But as you saw with Bryson last November, when everybody thought he was going to run away with it, he can get it out there, but you have to get it up and down, and you have to be able to putt to win this event. And that's why I like guys like Justin Thomas and Patrick Reed, because they have those metrics that can play well here.
Yeah, and I think there's another guy you will like. Well, there's Justin Thomas's numbers. He's a 10-1 and even money to be a top 10. I like the top 10 bet. I don't. There's no locks in this world, but that just seems to be a solid, smart bet. It's not like he.
I mean, the way he destroyed the field at one of the hardest events and the toughest fields at Players Championship at Sawgrass just reminded us that he is still one of the world's greatest players. And like you mentioned earlier, his numbers are getting better and better and better at Augusta. He did finish T4 back in November quietly, and his last 7 rounds are under par at Augusta after having early struggles there. So if I'm going to play one of the favorites, Thomas would be one of the ones. But I'll give you a guy that I really like in terms of value, metrics, course history, etc. Flying under the radar, probably until this show and in other shows that I go on or in the column tomorrow. But my top play when it comes to value for this event outside of the favorites is Cam Smith at 35, 40-1. Cam Smith, what gets my attention is whenever you have the title first player in Masters history, immediately the alarm bells go off in my head. And Cam Smith, believe it or not, in November was the first player in the history of the event. Not Jack, not Arnie, not Tiger, not Nick Price, not any of those guys. Greg Norman, none of them shot 4 rounds in the 60s and won Masters.
That's right, yeah.
Just last November, and before people say, he got lucky, Dustin ran away with it, no one was paying attention. 2 years earlier, he finished 5th at the Masters. So here's Cam Smith, who finished 5th in 2018 and finished 4th last November with all 4 rounds in the 60s. That's someone that knows how to play the course, someone who's looks forward to playing there and knows what to do to get you just don't show up and get 4 rounds in the 60s. Plus, he's playing well, having finished 4th at the Genesis in LA, 11th at the World Golf Championship Concession, and 17th at Sawgrass. All 3 events he was in contention heading to Sunday. So he's played the tough events well, playing well recently, has played very well at Augusta, and just as important, we talked about the metrics, 24th in total shots gained, 20th in putting, and 22nd around the green. We talked about it a minute ago. Tee to green, putting around the green. Cam Smith, top 25 in all of those, coming off a very successful November outing at Augusta, but not just November, which I know the course played a little easier. 2 years earlier in 2018 when Patty Reed went on to win, he finished T5. So I like Cam Smith, 3-1 to finish in the top 10, 35 or 40-1, depending on your book, to win it all. To me, that's a good value play. He'll be somebody I'll also be using in DraftKings and in other places that I play.
Yeah, I like that play quite a bit. I mean, there's no reason not to have him in your DraftKings for sure. And then play. Are you playing both 35-1 to win and the 3-1 to be top 10, or do you like one better than the other?
I actually got him at 40-1 2 weeks ago. Since the Masters odds have been up a while, he's down to 35-1 now. So I already played him at 40-1, and I will be playing him at top 10s once they come out. My book doesn't post them until Wednesday, but I will be playing him at 3-1 in the top 10 as well.
Okay. And let's see here. Another guy that's flying under the radar here is there's Spieth. I hit the wrong slide. I'm not a very good director. Xander Schauffele. Now this is a guy that I'm kind of on the fence with, but when I look at 14th ranking, 1.472 shots gained overall, tee to green 1.22, putting 0.24. The thing that sticks out with him and keeps me from wanting to bet this is the around the green. He has that little negative number there, but I don't think that's all a bad thing. It's not like he's losing half a stroke.
He's a curious case because the numbers will show you that he's right there with the best of them. I mean, Xander has every single year he finishes near the top of the leaderboard in most of these strokes gain metrics. He's a guy who is always in contention. He's very, very good at majors. He has some really, really sick numbers. He's had 14 total major appearances. He's finished in the top 10 in 7 of them. That's nuts. And he hasn't won any.
It's crazy.
Call it what it is. He hasn't won any. But if you and I have talked a bunch about trying to cash tickets that aren't necessarily win tickets, guy's finished in the top 10 in 50% of his majors. That is a ridiculous number. He has, since his last win, and I joke in the column tomorrow that unfortunately Xander is starting to slowly creep into the Tony Finau discussions of all the talent in the world can't close the door. Now, the difference is Xander has 4 wins. Tony has 1, and his 1 win is at a B event in Puerto Rico many, many years ago. So there is a difference there. However, neither one has won in the last 2 years. And if you go back to the last time Xander has won, which was in Hawaii in January of 2019, he's had 16 top 10s and 8 runner-up finishes. 8 runner-up finishes in the last 2.5 years. So he's there. He gets there. He has the stats to compete there. You kind of call what he's going through right now a little bit of a mini slump since missed a cut at the Players, T39 at the concession. By Xander Schauffele's standards, that is a slump. So it scares me a little bit because he's not playing great going into this event. But at the end of the day, no one is going to be surprised to see on Sunday Xander Schauffele 2 shots off the lead with a chance at his first major, coming up just shy, runner-up, T3. And then next time around, we say he has 8 top 10s in 15 appearances. So he is going to be someone I'm going to play in the top 10 at plus 175. I may even sprinkle a little bit on a top 5 at 4-1 because that's what Xander does. He winds up showing up, playing well, maybe has a couple of holes that he could have played better. At the end of the day, you're not thinking about him because someone else goes and puts the green jacket on. You're like, oh, he finished T4. Yeah, T4. That's a good 4-1 on your money for a top 5. I'll probably look to play him in matchups as well. May or may not include him on my my DFS lineup, but he's a guy where at the end of the day, you're expecting him to make the cut. You're expecting him to play well. Those last couple of rounds do worry me, but he's also the type of guy that shows up when the lights are on. I mean, you can't really argue his history with 7 top 10s and 14 appearances at majors, 8 runner-up finishes in the last 2 years. If there's a big event, Xander usually shows. That's why the Players was that disappointing. I played him in the Players and he missed the cut, and that ended a long streak of about 20-plus consecutive cuts made. I would expect him to make the cut, and I would expect him to contend. He just hasn't been able to close the deal, so like Finau, it's tough to play him until he does.
Well, just looking at, you said he's in a slump, but look at these numbers here on the slide. Driving accuracy, he's 9th, 11th, 19th, 32nd. Birdie average is a pretty important thing at the Masters.
I use slump loosely because by his standards, I mean, T39
right.
and missed the cut, that's bad for him when you consider that he's all about top 10s and top 15s over the last couple of years. He does have 4 wins, and I put Xander on my short list of guys where if I were to look into the future and say, all right, over the next 8 to 12 majors, who's going to get the check mark next to his name as a major winner? I have Xander Schauffele on that list before I have Tony Finau. I think Xander,
I agree.
at some point, does get his. I mean, last year Bryson was on that list. A few years ago, DJ was on that list. Sergio was on that list. Justin Thomas was on that list. I think Xander is the next big thing to be able to, needs that major to put the stamp on his. I am here. I'm one of the best players in the world because everybody else has one now. Brooks has a few. Justin has 1. Dustin has 2. Spieth has a couple. So if you want to be among the elite in the world, you got to win that first one. Jason Day's won a major. These guys at least get that first one in there so they're major champions. Xander still needs it. I would put him on that short list of 5 guys I think are going to break through in the next 3 years, and he would be one of them.
Yeah, I agree. And then another golfer, that's Spieth. We didn't really talk about him, but...
It's like you're picking Spieth since you keep going to it.
I like the plus 100 even money top 10 with him. And I think he won the Travelers and then the Open back in 2016. I could be wrong on that, but that's why I'm kind of recommending to people listening here, don't think that Spieth is not going to be involved with this event, because I think he is. And as you said, to see him put on the green jacket would not be a surprise.
To me, it depends on what your type of betting is. If you're an all-in golf bettor like you and me, and you're going to take 4 or 5 guys here in top 10s, matchups, etc., Spieth would be one of the top 10 guys. Wouldn't be a guy I'd play to win because the value's not there. If you're someone showing up, watch the Masters, you want action on it, you're going to bet one guy to go win and root for, I don't blame you for picking the guy who won last week, who has won at this tournament before and should have 2 green jackets in his closet, considering his 2 balls he put into Rays Creek there on 12. He legitimately should have 2 green jackets, always plays well here. He went T2, win, T2. I don't blame anybody for saying, well, now that Jordan's back and he's going to Augusta, I'm going to play him to win. It's the only bet I make all week. I don't blame you at all. If you're someone who's looking to have a portfolio of stuff this week like you and I do, I would put Jordan more of the top 10 play than the win play, just because I'm not thrilled about 9-1. Had you said, hey, I'll give you a Jordan Spieth at 20-1, absolutely I would take that, but that's not available anymore. Kind of missed the boat on that one, and I don't chase. I'm not a guy who says, oh, like, you're buying high and selling low if you want to use a stock option. People have a hard time understanding that sometimes if you're not in this every single day. Yeah, if you think Jordan's going to win, go bet Jordan to win, because 9-1 is better than 0. So if you really think that's your guy, I would never talk anybody off of making a bet on a guy that legitimately thinks going to win. All I'm saying is, if you had bet him 2 weeks ago, your portfolio would look a heck of a lot better. I know a lot of people out there who grabbed him at 40, 50, 60-1. Heck, he was 100-1 to win in November's event. To think that 4 months, 5 months later, he's actually a co-favorite at some books to win. I'm probably going to include him in DFS stuff because at the end of the day, you want a guy that makes the cut. You want a guy that makes a lot of birdies. You want a guy that's going to hang around and get you a top finish. I firmly believe Jordan Spieth is on that list. I also think his price on DraftKings is a lot higher than it should be based on where he's been. But hey, he's the hot commodity. He could win another one. But at the end of the day, do you want to – it depends on – you talk about pizza money all the time. If you got a little pizza money, sure. If you're building a portfolio, it's probably not where I would go.
Yep, I agree. And it's a problem with my DraftKings and the optimization. You're only limited to $50,000 to begin with. And if you wanted to have Spieth and Justin Thomas, it becomes more of a challenge. But we'll get through the players here, and then we'll touch upon the DraftKings rankings that I have from the models. But one player here is Rory McIlroy, and literally he is flying under the radar, I think. It's almost like, wait, who's this guy again? And for the life of me, I don't know why that is, but you had mentioned too that he tried to swing like Bryson, and he hits the ball plenty long enough to begin with. He doesn't need the extra yards. He probably hits his irons better than Bryson by a long shot. And I clearly think if he went back to what worked and settled on hitting it 310 instead of 340, he would be on that top 5 leaderboard come Sunday as well.
I'll tell you what, John, I stood there, and this is a true story. I stood there on the 10th tee in 2011 waiting for the coronation of Rory McIlroy, Masters champion. Huge lead going into Sunday. Stood on the 10th tee box, still had the lead, and I stood there and I watched him have that horrible drive that disappeared off the house. And when I saw that, I said, wow. And then no one knew he was going to go shoot a 40 and blow himself out. Didn't even finish in the top 10. I will tell you, though, on my plane ride home, I immediately got my second leg of the tournament I was in and wrote Rory McIlroy's name next to U.S. Open because I figured he's going to learn a lesson from what he just did, and he's going to go win the U.S. Open, which he did a few weeks later in impressive runaway fashion. If you had told me then, in 2011, that Rory McIlroy, 10 years later, would still not have a Masters title, I would have told you were crazy. Because it's just a curious case that he's won everything else. He's won FedEx Cup stuff. He's won every playoff event. He's won every other major multiple times. He doesn't have a green jacket, which the way he played the first 3 days of that event, there was no way this guy wouldn't be a Masters champion. And ever since then, it's been that whole thing that's been hanging over his head. Career Grand Slam, career Grand Slam. Tell you what, though, I'm throwing that out the window. The one thing that bothers me more than that whole can he ever win at the Masters, he will. Rory's going to have a green jacket before you and I are put in the grave. What bothers me is his recent play. The swing coach change. Ever since he shot a final round 76 to the Arnold Palmer, he's been terrible. He missed the cut at Sawgrass with 2 horrible rounds. He got blown out of the water in the first match of match play by Ian Poulter, who wasn't even supposed to be in the field. Did rebound nicely.
That's true.
Won the second event on Thursday, and then on Friday got a half with Cam Smith, who I'm high on. So he played a little bit better. Missed the group stage, but I don't know what is going on. But I can tell you one thing: if there is a place for Rory McIlroy to fix his game, he's currently in the right location. He may not have won one, but I'm gonna give you a stat that'll blow your mind. Last 7 appearances at Augusta, 6 top 10s. That speaks for itself. Now, are you picking Rory to? I mean, you think Rory's going to come back and get his green jacket? Not the way he's been playing, but no matter which Rory shows up, 7 years, 6 top 10s. I'm going to roll with that again. You're getting plus 150, rare plus money on Rory to finish in the top 10 because of how bad he's been the last 2.5 rounds. I'm not ready to give him that green jacket because he hasn't played well recently. But if this was February, I would have said Rory's turn to win the green jacket. He was playing great January and February. I don't know what has changed. I'm not in his head. He will win a green jacket. I don't think it's going to be this week, but I would play him to finish in the top 10 just because that's what he does. I mean, T5s in 2 of his last 3 trips. So you're not getting the Rory of 2017 or 2018, but I believe you can get a Rory that can contend here like he has done. And it's all he does is contend. And I think at some point he will put that on. It's just, I mean, the fact that I read Golf Digest this morning, he's their 28th out of the 80-something players in the field. I mean, think about that. Rory McIlroy, 28th. He still went top 5 in the draft that I do. I do a Masters pool every year. He still went top 5. He's Rory McIlroy. He's just not someone that I was going to spend a high draft pick on.
I can still remember that press conference after he won the U.S. Open, and I forget who the reporter was that asked the question, but what's the difference, Roy, between the 80 you shot and now being able to do this? And he flat out said, well, if I wouldn't have shot the 80, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you today. And that is true. I loved it. I'll never forget that moment.
And that's why on that plane ride back, I literally scrolled it because I have picks that are due right after the Masters through the U.S. British Open. I wrote up Rory McIlroy will win the U.S. Open. He proved me right. He went out there and won it in impressive fashion, has won many majors since. This is the one thing that, and again, every guy has the one. Phil Mickelson, it's the U.S. Open with 6 runner-up finishes. Rory has been there, and, I think Phil's time has passed him by. He's now father time. He's on the other side of 50. Rory has plenty of years left, and Rory will have a green jacket by the time it's all said and done.
Phil is an interesting name. He came up on the radar just a little bit on my stuff because his total shots gained for the first time in years has progressively gotten better after each event. I'm not saying that you take him, but he may be one of those guys to look at to plug into your DFS if you're trying to take the top guys, which you can only probably take 2. I don't know how you would do it if you took 3 of them, because then you're at risk of not having at least 5 guys get through the cut. You got to get 6, and that's the goal. That's the goal. You're not trying to pick the winner. You're trying to get 6 guys through, and then you'll cash. But
I would probably feel comfortable having Phil round up one of my DraftKings, or if you're in a snake draft, 5th, 6th round pick, just because he knows how to play this course. And you and I have talked before that Augusta National, when we weigh all of our metrics, this course relies on course history the most. And Phil, doesn't matter how old he is, just like Freddie Couples every year goes out and shoots a 67 on Thursday. Phil's the type of guy who he's not going to win. Let's put that down. Don't go buy a lottery ticket and have him to win at 150 to 1. But if you're looking for someone to make the cut and fill out your lineup down, I don't even know what his value is at DraftKings. It's not the world's worst pick. There are some props out there you can pick him to, make the cut, maybe a top 20. But, he's long past his win majors days, but he knows this course, just like you and I know our local muni. Like, he knows Augusta National. You can hit shots from anywhere. He has an advantage on guys in the field. And one thing I would probably look to do, and I haven't yet, is, go find the matchup of Phil versus a first-timer, a guy who's never been to the course before, who's, again, I haven't looked, but maybe you find a Victor Hovland who hasn't played here before but is a hot name, and maybe you get Phil at plus money. One guy's never played, one guy can recite it in his sleep. So I'm not saying that's the exact example, but if you, depending on where he is Saturday and Sunday, he may be matched up with someone who's never played it before. He might have some value there because a lot of the betting is based on how the guy's been doing, and Phil hasn't contended recently, especially at this course.
That's a great advice. It reminds me of McIntyre too. He's a first timer. I don't know if he'll be matched up against Phil, but McIntyre's 200-1. Now, I'm not saying a first timer is ever going to win this, but for DraftKings, that might be a name to use as a plug and go for sure. And I know you liked Sung Jae Im here, plus 120 in the top 20. I think that's, I don't want to use the word no-brainer because it involves a lot of intelligence to come up with plays that have confidence. And, all his metrics look, very suited right now coming into this Masters. And I definitely expect him to make the cut.
He's a guy who was another runner-up to the DJ Runaway Train. He was runner-up with Cam Smith in November, so he played well there. Isn't somebody I would normally take because of only his second appearance, but he played well there, and he's playing well recently. He's a grinder. He plays every single week, so he's in golf form. You're getting what you get out of Sungjae because he plays every week. Some guys take weeks off. You don't know if the rest helps or hurts. This guy plays every single week. 8th place at the Honda a few weeks ago, top 25 in putting and in overall. So another guy you can round up your lineup, play in a top 20, somebody that can shoot well. I mean, again, depends on what your type of pool is.
I like that pick too. And here's Paul Casey. Now, I will tell you flat out, this is the guy that I like the most in the tournament. Again, a guy that I think has the potential to win it. And, you can say it's a long shot, whatever. But if I was going to, pick one that, and you really want to pick one that nobody else is really picking, you want to stay away from the herd mentality. Much like we saw in the NCAA basketball tournament. You get that rare situation, and lo and behold, it sometimes comes through. So I like the 3-1 at top 10. And I think you're betting Paul Casey here at even money to beat Tony Finau, which I'm a big seller of Tony Finau right now. I don't dislike him. A couple years ago, he was playing the par 3 and dislocated his ankle after a hole-in-one with his family. He then played the rest of the event with that injury. I have nothing bad to say about him, but I don't think his game coming into the Masters right now is anywhere close to contending on Sunday.
No, it's not. And Finau, for the lack of wins, he contends a lot. He's played well here before, but he hasn't played well the last few weeks. And I think Paul Casey is primed to get that victory over Finau and play well. Casey's on my short list of the players who best to not win a major. Him, Lee Westwood, guys that have been close before. He went T6, 4 T6 back the last couple of years in 2015, 16, and 17. Finished T15 in 2018. Held the first round lead. He's a guy who I have to check his tee time. Wouldn't mind playing as a first round leader. He did it last year. So he can play this course. It suits his game. I'm always a big fan of Paul Casey. He's a guy who you wake up on Saturday and he's near the top of the leaderboard at every single major. So I like that.
And the last one I think we're going to be covering here is Tyrrell Hatton not to make the cut. So that's plus 175 to miss the cut.
Yeah, if you look, here's a guy who's 8th in the world. So you're like, why is David picking a guy 8th in the world to miss the cut? I'll tell you why. He missed the cut in all 3 majors last year. Won top 20 in 2019. Missed the cut in all 4 majors in 2017. Missed the cut at the Players' Championship a few weeks ago. So Hatton has some wins. He's won the Arnold Palmer. He won overseas and won the BMW PGA Championship. He won in Abu Dhabi a few weeks ago. But when it comes to the limelight, the big events, everyone wants to take Hatton, one of the foreigners who can come over here and win a major. They just haven't shown that. You're getting almost 2-1 on a guy who's missed the cut in 7 of his last 10 majors. He just hasn't gotten it done. I don't know what it is. I don't know the reason. But I was looking at a guy to play on this prop, and here's a name that you're getting money for because he's 8th in the world. And he very well, most of the field makes the cut anyway because there's only 80-something players. But I'm going to throw that out there as all it takes is one bad round for him to miss it.
It's true. And last on the DFS, I have, for what it's worth, the best player to have in your DFS this week is Jordan Spieth. Now, this is not saying that Jordan's going to win. This is for your 6-player DraftKings lineup. Then I have a choice of some really cheap guys. Sebastian Munoz. I usually don't like taking guys under 7,000, but this kid can play. He's $6,600. Abraham Answer, 7,400. Corey Connors, who we know David likes quite a bit, 6,900. And Sung Jae-im is 8,600, which I think is cheap. Bryson does come up next at 10,800. John Rahm, 11,000. Another name that nobody's really talking about is Hideki Matsuyama, 8,300. I think that's a great value. Will Zalatoris, first-time player, of course. That's the story with the Masters. You want to kind of shade away from him, but he's at 7,300. Ryan Palmer. Of all the names I said right so far, Ryan Palmer is second to Paul Casey, and Paul Casey's 7,700. And I think I'll go out on a limb, David. And I think anybody's doing DFS doesn't have one of those two names in the lineup is crazy.
I'll agree with you. I actually tried getting Ryan Palmer in one of my snake drafts and was disappointed to see him go 2 or 3 picks before me. I had him on my list as about a third, fourth round pick. I like Jason Kokrak. I think you mentioned Willie Z is obviously someone that depends on whether you want to go with a first timer or not. Carlos Ortiz is someone, and you can't discount what Ian Poulter's done the last couple of weeks. He's playing well. He plays well here. He plays well in majors. He wants to make another Ryder Cup. Here's a name that the guy just shows up in big events and does well. So he's a guy that I may play for a cheaper price and see how that goes.
Yeah, Kokrak is 6,900. Phil Mickelson, 6,600. Yep. And I think Matt Wallace is in pretty decent form. Again, you're thinking of guys that will make the cut. And then there's Adam Scott, who you and I think have liked every single week, and he's 7,600.
I played him in a couple of lineups. It's tough because he hasn't put it all together. He's won here before, just doesn't have a lot out there, and seems to, if Sawgrass was a good example. Every time you think he was going to make a run, he would dunk one in the water. Next time around, he'd put it 1 foot from the cup on 17, and then he would double 18. He's just not putting it all together, and that's a lack of reps. And so Adam Scott is somebody that I may play on DFS, but is somebody that I might want to wait for him to do a couple of more before we get going.
One last question before I let you go. Mike Fitzpatrick, what do you think his chances are this week? Top 20, top 10, missed a cut?
I like Fitzpatrick for a top 20. He's a guy who can get out there and hit it out there. He has a really good iron game as well. He's someone that seems to have one bad round at every one of these events. So if you can avoid that bad round, he was somebody that was targeting in the third round of my draft and didn't get him. But he's somebody that I like, and I've taken him in many events before. I just think he's not there yet at that next cut of players that's ready to win at a major, but he's a guy that would be on the next tier of guys that will win a major one day.
Fair enough. I love it. Well, David, I'll give you the floor here. You want to tell the people what's going on over there at ESPN? Anything special happening?
Yeah, well, we just finished our NCAA Final Four picks. We're going to have the golf picks out tomorrow morning, so by about 8:30, these picks should be posted. You heard most of mine, but Krista Bear-Felica, Anita Marks, Joe Fortenbaugh, and Doug Kazarian will have their picks. And we're looking forward to a busy week. We'll have NBA picks as well tomorrow, as well as Friday morning. And it's on to golf and NBA now that college basketball is behind us. Out on Chalk this morning is a column that Doug wrote about next year's futures for the NCAA tournament. Gonzaga, Baylor, UCLA favorites to come back for next year. So that's all there on ESPN Chalk.
And if you haven't seen the show, make sure you go see the Daily Wager every day, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a must-watch. It just will teach you more and more and more from some of the best that is available out there. You'll learn a ton, and I promise you it'll be fun, too, because they do a lot of laughing on that show. So anyway, for David, thanks for being part of this show. I can't wait for the start of this event. So for the Predictive Playbook, may all the wins be yours.